Currently there are 21 Mythic Weapons in Call of Duty Mobile, and at least one of them is being returned every new season. And since I don't think that majority of players who buy draws are able to just afford all the draws every season ever, I decided to make a video review of all the Mythic Weapons just to help you prioritize draws, to decide what to skip, what to get, just go through the pros and cons and whatnot. But first, a few things that make Mythic Weapons good. So first of all, the aim shake. As you can see on default weapons, it is quite bad around the iron sight. On legendary variants it is lessened, and on Mythic Weapons it is even further decreased. And it does help when you're shooting at your enemies, and it is a clear advantage. Another thing would be tactical sprinting, so when you're running around with Mythic it is on your right side and does not block the view. And both of these things, they do impact the game, they make your game better. Although the difference is not like severely huge, as the aim shake is still there, and I mean even regular sprinting is not the worst. And the third aspect that makes Mythics like better compared to legendaries is that if you max them out, you can use the Mythic share option and simply drop the Mythics for your team. And that way they get guns with modified iron sights. So like if you have a nice legendary variant for a weapon, you don't really need a Mythic one. But if you don't have either, then it would be quite reasonable to prioritize the Mythics. Simply because you get a bit more value compared to the legendaries. Although the difference is not all that drastic. And so the very first Mythic is the Fennec. Some say that design is quite bland, but well, I personally have no issues with it. And what is good is the iron sight. Now the square shape of it might feel a bit awkward at first, but once you get adjusted to it, it is just super clean. The bottom part is also not obstructive, so it is very easy to efficiently aim with it. And so legendary variants of the Fennec, they also, some of them feature nice iron sights, but they are more obstructive on the bottom part. And obstruction basically just means that they block part of the view and make it harder to aim. And so Mythic Fennec would be just the best option for the Fennec. And as for meta usability, in ranked multiplayer it is certainly the best aggressive SMG to use. However, in the current meta situation, assault rifles are dominant, so it will not be the best choice in some or even majority of the lobbies. But basically, if you keep on getting killed from afar by assault rifles, it means the match is not suitable for the Fennec. However, if you see that your enemies are being aggressive and engage in close range battles, then you can just switch to Fennec and you will dominate. And end up with many kills, maybe even MVP with many kills, and contribute dearly to the victory of your team. And Battle Royale from aggressive close range SMGs, it is certainly one of the best options. Like there you have Fennec, MAC-10 and some other variants which may not be as good in multiplayer, but in Battle Royale they are all good. And so to conclude, it is one of the Mythics that you can just get and you will not be disappointed. Iron sight is good and the gun is usable. Oh, but you're not getting a lot of value from maxing it out, so you should only do it if you intend to share it with your team. Second Mythic is the Peacekeeper, and it has a bad iron sight. Well, the sight itself is not bad, but the bottom part is very obstructive and it makes it really difficult to aim. And the legendary Peacekeepers that were released later, they are just better. So you can safely skip this Mythic unless you really like the design. Because for any other reason, even for like being more competitive, the legendary option would be preferred. As for usability, there were times when it was main meta in multiplayer, but it has been quite absent for the longest time, like maybe even a year. And it is usable, but it is not like top-notch competitive. In Battle Royale, I don't think it was ever like super duper top-notch meta. So really, Peacekeeper, well, I really love the design, I wanted to have it, I waited for like a year to get it. and when I started playing and I was like, meh, bad sight. I still tried playing, but now I'm just glad that I own it. Like that I have purchased to have digital access to this thing. But that's about it until the iron sight is fixed, maybe someday, hopefully. Yeah, and as you level it up you get some nice additional kill effects, but it is not a weapon that you really should bother maxing out, as you simply don't want to share it with your team. Moving on, the AS Valve, the iron sight is really quite bad as well. It is just too small. However, I found out that if you get the Aether Crystal camo from the zombie missions, then the whole top part of the weapon, it kind of functions like an iron sight extension, and then it is really good. And another thing that makes it better compared to legendaries is the reduced aim shake, because it is an aggressive weapon and it is a benefit in this case. So iron sight, like I said, if you get the camo, it is enough. It is usable. You also have the tactical sprinting. So as far as like Mythic itself goes, it is good. As far as the meta usability, you can kind of consider the regular firing option as a slower Fennec with better range. So if you are bad with Fennec recall, you can try as well, maybe it will be easier for you. And there is the semi-auto variant, which is essentially like SKS, which quite a few YouTubers keep mentioning as a meta variant. So yeah, basically semi-auto you could use, the SMG, like the standard assault rifle, which is essentially an SMG. In this weapon's case you can use as well, but they are just better options. In Battle Royale it is really not good. There were times when it was great, but later it was nerfed and never really came back. And overall, also it is not a mythic that you should bother maxing out. The iron sight remains the same and you only essentially just get a couple of kill effects. And it is one of the mythics that can be skipped. Holger 26. There are 2 legendary variants available as well, but the iron sights are pretty good on all of them. So if you have a legendary you don't really need a mythic, but otherwise prioritizing it over the legendaries would be a good call, because you get the tactical sprinting and other benefits. As for meta usability, well, in multiplayer it used to be top-notch meta, later it just became too slow. Now it has been buffed a little bit, and it is usable. It is like not top-notch meta, but you can put it in the meta. Although for as long as MG42 is not nerfed again, it would be a better option, but like Holger is next from LMGs, it is right after the MG40. In Battle Royale it has always been kind of usable, but there are just better options like assault rifles that would be just more competitive. But it is a pretty well-rounded weapon, you can use it in any mode. And this mythic you can actually get if you're using the Holger 26. And why it would be reasonable? Because the default iron sight is really bad. So like if you don't have the one battle pass variant with a good sight or some legendary, then this mythic is a good call. Oh, and maxing out you also get those like frames around the kill notifications, which is a nice touch, and it is a mythic that you can kind of share with the team, but it is not a must to max it out. Yeah, Rytec design is nice, but the iron sight is bad. The gun itself, well, in Battle Royale you can use it, as well as many other snipers. In multiplayer there are more competitive options, and I pretty much only got it to complete the mythic selection, and as you can see I did not even max it out, and frankly I do not intend to. Like, if the iron sight was improved, then it would be pretty cool, but as it is simply not a mythic that you should even consider getting, really. Well, I mean, if you have like spare money or want to finish a collection, or just an absolute beast with the Rytec weapon and want this mythic in particular, not some legendary with a better iron sight, then go for it, but otherwise just no. M13 design is good, iron sight is not the best. There are legendary variants with better iron sights, usability. At the moment it is like a worse variant of the FFAR1, and meta positioning in multiplayer, the lower in like legendary ranked you are, the better the gun performs. But as you climb up, and especially in leaderboard, it is just not good enough. In Battle Royale it is usable as aggressive assault rifle, but there also are just better options. And design-wise it is good, and I think the gun is severely hyped because it comes like with a ghost character in the draw, but it is really not that good at the moment and has not been good for a really long time. But if you do want to use it, you can. Just even a legendary variant would perform as well, and that would be really all about the M13. As for maxing out, you only get some death effects and the frames, and since it is not a weapon that you would mythic share, you don't have to pop. CBR4, there are 2 good legendaries with nice iron sights, there are 2 epic variants with nice iron sights, and sights of this mythic are good as well. So if you have pretty much any of those, you don't need others. And the design is nice, the usability, well, in multiplayer it used to be the main meta, but hasn't been since it got nerfed a couple of times. Now it received a bit of a ADS time buff, and essentially it is like a variant of PDW with worse bullet spread accuracy and range, but better movement and mobility. And it is not a gun that is meta, but it is also not a gun that will make you underperform. So if you absolutely want to use it, you can use it in multiplayer. In Battle Royale, the situation is roughly the same. Like, it's not meta, it's not overpowered, but it's not just a bad gun either. It's just, yeah, it's usable if you like it. And I maxed it out when it was main meta so I could share it with my teammates. But now you really don't need to bother with maxing it. Kilo 141 used to be the king of the multiplayer meta assault rifles, but in the current meta it is just not powerful enough. And until the situation changes, it will remain a viable non-meta. But there are just guns that are better. In Battle Royale, however, it is still usable. You should just prioritize on getting like more range and bullet spread accuracy, and then it will be very nice. And it is actually my very favorite mythic of all the mythics. So I'm personally quite displeased about the meta situation right now, but I try it every season, like after reset, just to check how it performs, and at the moment it is not good. But I mean, some buffs, some nerfs here and there, it could come back. And design, it is great, the iron sight, it is splendid. There are no issues in that regard, and the iron sight is better compared to the legendary variants. So like, everything is good about this mythic aside of the current meta situation usability. And by leveling it up you get some nice kill effects, you get the frames. And it used to be a gun that you could share with your teammates, but at the moment just no. So I mean, do not max it out. If you have it, maybe just wait for better times and then max it out. And overall, well, it is a skippable at this point. Unless the meta situation changes, when it will be back again and good. So yeah, that is it about the Kilo 141. AK-47 Radiance. Now I cannot play this song because YouTube will give me a copyright, because with Mythic theme song it has some voice lines and basically I think it is copyrighted, like singer's product or something. And so Mythic AK-47, the iron sight is quite good, but the Frost brand would still be better, the epic variant. There are quite a few legendary variants for the weapon as well, but this iron sight would be better compared to them. Overall usability, well, in multiplayer there was a time when it was like, oh, very meta, wow, use it. But now I think it is just not powerful enough. Like we have MG42 and whatnot that are just faster. And I tried many various gunsmiths, but it is not as good as it was like a couple of seasons ago even. In Battle Royale, AK-47 is pretty much a staple. You will not go wrong with it, like when you're getting a custom. But in MP it is just not really good right now. And overall situation, well, in BR you could just put a classic red dot on like a default variant and it will be still good. So this is a highly skippable mythic. Unless you just absolutely are engulfed with the design and want to main it everywhere. Even if it is not really meta in multiplayer right now usability wise. But you just really want to do it, then yeah, sure, but otherwise, like, it's certainly not a must get. So far I think the Fennec was like a mythic that it is really nice because the default sight is bad. And the reduced aim shake is also really good for it. The visual effect, because otherwise it is very shaky. And AK-47 can be skipped. Oden, on the other hand, it is a splendid meta in multiplayer after the buff. In BR it has always been very usable because there you can also put the extended mod on it and have more bullets. And it kills enemies fast. It is slower like mobility wise, ADS time wise, but it is still good as you can 2-shot, 3-shot, in MP at least. And the iron sight, it is great on this mythic. It is basically like the Frostbrand but modernized, so improved. And there is a legendary variant for Oden as well, but mythic is better. Although if you have a legendary, then you can skip the mythic. The legendary isn't really bad. I just skipped it because I already had the mythic anyway. And well, as far as maxing out goes, you don't really need to do that unless you want to mythic share with your team, which could be advantageous right now. And you also get some nice def effects, you get some aesthetics of like attachments. Colossal suppressor looking really nice and whatnot. So this is one of the mythics that you can get and can even max out at the moment. Because mythic share, it is quite favorable at the moment. Switchblade X9 is a newer generation mythic with a different leveling system, and I would say level it up to 1 to get the visual aesthetic changes for your gunsmith attachments. Otherwise, kill effect the added 1v level 2 is quite bad because it is very obstructive, and simply you will not be able to see enemies nearby after killing one and you will just get killed. And other levels there is no point to max it out at the moment because it is not the main meta like it used to be when I maxed it out to share with my team. And so meta usability, well, it is still quite usable, it is competitive. And essentially it would be a slightly slower Fennec with better range. So you can certainly use it. In multiplayer, in Battle Royale it is usable as well. There are no issues usability wise, but even the default variant has a nice iron sight. And so if you do get this mythic, you can use it, you will be happy. But if you skip it, it is no loss. Like you can do the same almost with the default variant. But like, I like the design, like I'm quite fond of having it, having access to it. Krig 6 used to be super duper top notch meta, but then it was nerfed. And it was still a viable choice, but in the current meta situation of multiplayer it is really quite bad. Like I've tried many various gunsmiths and it is just underperforming compared to like top meta weapons or even other usable weapons. In Battle Royale you can use it, but there are better options as well. So usability wise it is like mid. It is, yeah, it would be mid, but like towards the underperforming side even a bit. Iron side, however, it is really good, there are no issues with it. And it is certainly leagues better than the default variant, which is just horrendous. There are 2 legendary variants of nice iron sights, however, so if you have either you can skip the mythic, if you have nothing then you can also skip it simply because the gun is not really meta. And if you do have a mythic, leveling up to 1 would be sufficient. And yet again I maxed it out when it was like top notch, and it really gave me results because I would share it with my teammates and they would perform better. And I mean, who knows, maybe someday the meta situation will change and it will be back again. So I'm making this video for like the current situation, and if you're watching it later, make sure to just check some meta videos just to double check if it is still bad or maybe it is once again top notch meta, you know. And you can also always ask in the comments, I always read them, so I will just tell you like, yeah, it is good now, or no, it's still bad. EM2, however, has always been good, but I guess it was never good enough to like warrant a top-notch meta or even meta title. But it is very usable, it has never been nerfed, it was even buffed, and in multiplayer and BR you can use it anywhere, it will not underperform. And frankly, the only reason I don't have it in my loadouts at the moment is because I don't have enough space, and like I was trying to prioritize the best weapons because I'm currently grinding in leaderboard. But if I had like even 1 more free loadout space, I would just put EM2. Now the iron sight, it is very clean, but it is also very wide and it always requires me to play some casual games just to get adjusted to it. And I think it could also be a reason why you don't see it being used a lot by like competitive players, because of how peculiar the sight is, despite being very clean and clear and whatever. But I mean, it is worth it. And Mythic itself, if it comes back you can get it, although I would recommend playing some games with even default variant just to see if the weapon is for you. And if it is, when you can get it, you will be happy. Maxing out, well, if you do max it out you can share it with your team, it will not ruin your chances to get a victory. Otherwise, level 1, maybe level 2 for the death effect would be sufficient. Although I would personally go to level 3 just to get the kill frames. DLQ is one of like the favorite snipers of Call of Duty mobile players, and it is good in multiplayer and battle royale. Essentially it is like a slightly slower locus with better damage profile, and so it is certainly usable. The iron sight of the mythic, however, even though it is very clear, but it is very wide and it is a bit awkward, like there are just better legendary variants for the DLQ. And if you have some legendary DLQ with a better iron sight, then you can skip the mythic. Unless you really want the mythic, like it is always a possibility. I'm just trying to give a review as objective as possible. And so if you don't have legendaries and decide to get the mythic, it is usable, it will not be bad, just you would be performing better with some of the legendary variants. And again, max it, level it up to level 1 to get the aesthetic gunsmith, like attachment changes looks. Otherwise there is no point really. Like you would not max out and share a sniper with a team of randoms, you know. QQ9 starts the wave of 3-sight mythics, because from this mythic you get a different iron sight on level 3 and level 5 of the upgrades. Now the weapon itself, usability wise, it has always been in and out of meta, but like always been around it, so it is not a bad choice to use. In the current meta situation I find it to be a bit lacking, but like the situation is changing and it's still usable, just not top-notch meta. Iron sight of the mythic, well, since they are free, I made a separate video for all of them just covering, but even the default one is pretty alright. So if you get it, you can just not max it out really. And if you have any legendary variant of the QQ9, then you don't really need to get a mythic. and vice versa because we all are pretty good. Epic QQ9s, however, they do have that whole aim shake going on, so for like more competitive approach, I would recommend the legendary or a mythic variant. And yeah, depending on your arsenal, depending on whether you use QQ9 or not, you can choose to get it or skip it. And it's not a must-have, but it's not bad if you do end up getting it. FFAR1 situation is similar to the EM2. Like, it was always a good option, but was never good enough to warrant a top-notch meta title. And if you do get a mythic, you will have a nice iron sight from level 3, because default one is not as good. And there is a legendary variant for the FFAR, but mythic iron sight, if you do get the level 3, is better. Otherwise, you might actually just use the legendary instead. And default event sight of the FFAR is not horrendous, so like, if you don't use it a lot, you could just use some epic default variant and you will be fine with it. And if you do get the mythic, the gun is quite viable. Just there are two options, there is the range barrel and there is the task force, which makes the gun faster instead of adding more range. And basically, depending on the season situation, I just choose one of them and build around, because one season one will be better compared to the other, but once you adjust it, it is usable. AK-117, a top-notch viable option for Battle Royale. For multiplayer, I find 40 rounds mag to give me the best build, but in such case you run out of bullets fast and you will have to reload a lot, and it requires a lot of focus, which makes it not as good as like top meta weapons like the Grau, because with Grau you can just sit and kind of relax, and with AK-117 to perform really well, you just sit on your toes, on the edge of your seat like, and you just have to be double focused and you will get tired fast. But ignoring that, it is usable in multiplayer and a great meta in Battle Royale. Iron sight, if you get at least level 3, it will be better than any of the legendary variants. If you max it out, then of course it is even better than the level 3. The default, however, is quite bad, so like, if you don't intend to level it up at least to 3, then just skip it. Especially if, let's say, you have some sort of a legendary variant already. And design-wise, it is one of my favorites. Like, I just like the theme, how simplistic it is, but still nice. And it is a draw that you can get, but you can also skip to. CX9 is currently featured in like top meta lists of multiplayer. In Battle Royale it was never like super good, it is just a different game mode. Now, I personally never really liked it in multiplayer, but I think that there are people that are certainly good with it. Although I usually do not see like MVPing players using the CX9. But based on all those videos and like other players' experience, it is viable. Now, Mythic Iron Sight default one is good, level 5 is essentially the same as the default, and level 3 is quite bad for some reason. However, the Battle Pass variant, I would say, has a better Iron Sight, it is more focused, but there are no issues with the Mythic Iron Sight either. Now, the default variant of like a regular CX9, I would say, is bad, because it is quite obstructive, it just blocks too much view. So to be competitive with CX9, you should at least have a Battle Pass variant. And if you do get the Mythic, it is not bad, there are no issues with it. Mythic Grau legendary variant is a lot better, the Iron Sight of the Mythic, it is just too wide. And all the levels we have the same issue. Like, the level 5 is as bad as the default or level 3, as we are all just too big, it is hard to aim unless you're shooting like from afar, from a longer distance, then it would be good. But in closer to mid-range areas it is just bad in multiplayer. In Battle Royale the sight is not the best either. Like, the legendary one just performs better. And if you don't have legendary and just decide to get it, well, the gun itself is a meta in multiplayer. Even after the recent nerf in Battle Royale, it is not really the greatest. There are better guns like AK-47, even the Oden, and whatnot, so Grau itself is a multiplayer meta, but the iron side of the Mythic is just not good. The legendary is better. Even the default, I would say, it is kind of more usable compared to the Mythic, which is a big pity because, well, design-wise I really like this. But I would also like to be able to aim well with it, you know. So yeah, Mythic Grau, and unless the iron side gets a very significant fix, Mythic Grau draw can be skipped. Type 19, one of my favorite mythics, it has been buffed twice and got pushed severely into multiplayer meta. It is a certainly great option. It would be like a slightly better Grau at the moment. And so in Battle Royale it is usable, although there are better guns, but like it will not be severely underperforming, just you would have like better chances of winning if you were using AK-47, Oden, Kilo and whatnot. Design wise it is nice. Now all the iron size, all three different iron sizes of this mythic, they are all good, so you don't have to max it out, which is amazing. But if you get to level 3 or level 5, you simply get slightly different designs and iron sights. So it is as mythic with 3 iron sights should be, in my opinion. You don't need to put more money into it to get a better sight, as all of them are good, but you just get more like customizable options if you do end up putting more money. And there are no issues with this mythic. It is one of my favorites. In multiplayer you can get it, use it, be happy. In BR you can use it, you won't be upset, but like you won't be extremely happy. And otherwise it is good. And I really don't have anything else to add at the moment, it is just good. It is good meta. All sides good. Although default type 19 iron sight, I think it is not the best, so for maximum performance to be more competitive, you could get the mythic. Or I've also seen people using the red dot instead of one of the attachments, which is also an option. So like, get the draw, be happy, don't get use red dot. And MG42 is just a huge disappointment. Only the max level iron sight is pretty good, others we are just too blending in with the environment and just they are really just bad iron sights. The default one, the level 3, they are bad. I made a separate video, I actually made videos for all the like 3 iron sight having mythics, so you can check them after, but just to conclude, you need the level 5. So if you want to have a good sight, you need to max it out. And then design wise it is also very wide, and like it is quite awkward during matches because of how wide it is. And default iron sight of a very default like variant, not mythic, it isn't bad either, and is a weapon that you just spam bullets with, so you don't really need a mythic, you don't need an improved iron sight. And overall usability, well, in multiplayer all the campers are spamming it, and it is super annoying. It is usable, it is good, but the way it is used it is just atrocious. But you can use it in both modes. It is meta in multiplayer, in Battle Royale. So like, the gun itself is usable, but the mythic is just horrendous. And if you don't intend to max it out, then there is no point in getting it, even default iron sight will be just as good. Yeah, and I don't know, like I really like the idea, but the way they made the product, it is just bad product. And all the 21 mythics have been covered. It actually took me like 3 hours just to do all the talking bits and all the editing and whatnot, so I hope that it was good and like you found what you were looking for. And I have divided video into chapters, so you can always just find a particular mythic gun review whenever some redux appears, so you could double check. And like I said regarding the meta situation, also just watch some nearby videos, maybe in other channels, maybe in mine, or just asking